The notification sound cuts through the silence like a slap. I'm standing in my kitchen, still wearing the dress I bought 3 weeks ago, specifically for today, emerald green. The color my mother once told me made me look too confident for my own good. The appetizers are arranged in neat rows on the counter. The tablecloth is pressed. The flowers I drove 40 minutes to pick up this morning are sitting in a vase my grandmother gave me before she passed. The one with tiny blue forget-me-nots painted along the rim. The notification is from my sister. It reads, "Sorry, something came up. We'll celebrate with you soon." I set my phone face down on the counter and walked to the window. Outside, the October sky is the kind of deep, aching blue that makes everything look like a painting. My name is on the deed of this house. I have read that sentence to myself probably 50 times in the past 2 weeks, turning it over like a coin I can't quite believe is real. My name, on the deed, of this house. I worked 5.5 years for it. Not 5.5 years the way people say they worked for something, meaning they thought about it, planned a little, got lucky at the right moment. I mean 5.5 years of 5 a.m. alarms, of packing lunches to avoid spending $8 at the hospital cafeteria, of skipping every girls' trip and every concert and every spontaneous weekend away that my friends invited me to. I mean 2 jobs for 14 months straight. My full-time position as a registered nurse on the cardiac floor and weekend shifts at an urgent care clinic 20 minutes from my apartment. I mean no vacations. I mean a 2012 Honda Civic with a cracked dashboard that I kept driving for 4 years past the point where everyone told me to just buy something new. I mean a savings spreadsheet I updated every single Sunday morning before church, watching the number grow one disciplined week at a time. I mean I did it alone. I did not come from money. My parents are not bad people. I want to be clear about that from the beginning. Because this story isn't about villains, it's about something quieter and in some ways harder to explain. My father worked his whole life at a manufacturing plant. My mother raised 3 kids and clipped coupons and made sure there was always food on the table. They gave what they had. But what they had, they divided unevenly. My brother is 33. His name is Derek. He is charming in the way that certain people are charming effortlessly and at significant cost to those around them. Derek has started 4 businesses. None of them survived past 18 months. Derek has borrowed money from my parents a total of 7 times that I know of, and probably more that I don't. Derek calls our mother every Sunday and makes her laugh, and she tells everyone who will listen that he has an entrepreneurial spirit and that his time is coming. I am 31. I have never borrowed a dime from my parents. I put myself through nursing school with a combination of scholarships, loans, and part-time work. I paid off those loans in 3 years. I have called my mother every Sunday too, though our conversations tend to run shorter. She asks if I'm seeing anyone. I tell her I've been busy. She sighs in a way that has a whole paragraph inside it. My sister is 27. Renee is the youngest and genuinely the kindest person in my family, but she is also deeply committed to keeping the peace in a family where the peace is maintained by everyone quietly agreeing to see things the way my mother sees them. Renee doesn't rock boats. She worries about me rocking boats. She loves me and she will choose the path of least resistance every single time, and I have made my peace with that, or I thought I had. My house is 1,100 square feet in a neighborhood that 10 years ago nobody wanted and 5 years ago everybody suddenly did. I found it after 8 months of searching. It needed work, the kitchen was a project. The bathroom grout was a color I can only describe as decades of regret, and I spent 4 months doing what I could myself on weekends, watching tutorials, painting walls, learning that I am surprisingly competent with a tile saw. I sent the invitations 6 weeks before today. I made it a proper event. Not a party, I'm not a party person, but a housewarming gathering, the kind my mother always talked about wanting to throw when I was growing up, back when we were renting and she would flip through home magazines and point at pictures and say someday. I chose a Sunday afternoon so no one would have to take time off work. I made my grandmother's potato salad recipe and my own cornbread, and I ordered a small custom cake from the bakery on Millbrook Avenue. I sent text invitations with the address and the time and a little paragraph about how much it would mean to have everyone there. My parents confirmed. Derek said sounds good. Renee sent 3 heart emojis. 3 weeks before the housewarming, Derek announced he was launching his 5th business. A premium car detailing experience, his words, targeting corporate clients. He needed startup capital. He asked my parents for $9,000. They gave it to him. I found out because my mother mentioned it on the phone. The way she mentions things she suspects I might react to quickly, sandwiched between other topics, her voice slightly higher than normal. "We just want to support his vision," she said. "You understand?" I said I did. I didn't say anything else about it, because there was nothing to say that I hadn't already said before, in different ways, over different years, to the same result. I just updated my spreadsheet that Sunday morning, looked at the number in the account, and felt something settle in my chest, something hard and quiet and entirely mine. The morning of the housewarming, I woke up early and drove to the farmer's market. I bought a potted rosemary plant for the front step. I had read somewhere that rosemary at the entrance of a home is supposed to mean remembrance, and I liked the idea of that of this house remembering who built it. I set up the food by 11. My colleagues were arriving at 2. I had invited 8 people from my unit at the hospital, women I have worked beside through code blues and 12-hour shifts, and the particular exhausted intimacy that comes from doing hard, necessary work together. My friend Claudia, who I've known since college, was driving up from Charlotte. My neighbor Patrick, 64 years old and a retired high school principal, had already texted that morning to say he was bringing his famous lemon bars. I had told my family 2 o'clock as well. At 2:15, Claudia arrived with flowers and a bottle of champagne and hugged me for a long time in the doorway. My colleagues came in a cluster, bringing a gift card and a succulent arrangement with a little card that said "Home is where the heart is," and apparently where Diana's famous cornbread is too. Patrick appeared at 2:30 with the lemon bars and a handshake that turned into a hug. By 3 o'clock, my living room was full of laughter and the smell of food and the particular warmth of people who chose to be there. Not one member of my family had arrived. At 3:15, I checked my phone. My mother had not texted. My father had not called. There was the message from Renee. Something came up and a text from Derek that I hadn't seen arrive. "Hey, today got complicated. Rain check?" I read it twice. Rain check. 5.5 years, 2 jobs, 5:30 a.m., alarms. 47 months of a savings spreadsheet I updated every Sunday morning. And my brother, who is currently spending $9,000 of my parents' money on a business that will almost certainly not exist by this time next year, needed a rain check. I put my phone back in my pocket. Claudia was laughing at something Patrick had said. The cornbread was almost gone. Outside, the October light was coming through the windows at an angle that made everything look gold. I rejoined my guests. I will not pretend it didn't hurt. It hurt in the specific, exhausting way that things hurt when they are not surprising. When you have arranged your expectations carefully for years, trimmed them down to almost nothing, and something still manages to find the gap and slide through. It hurt the way it hurts to hear the same sentence in a different voice and realize you have been hearing it your whole life without a name for it. I smiled and I talked and I laughed at Patrick's story about the time he accidentally locked himself out of the school during a fire drill, and I meant all of it. The joy was real. The hurt was also real. Both things existed in me at the same time, in the same body, in the same green dress in the house with my name on the deed. At 4:45, my doorbell rang. I knew before I opened it. My mother was standing on my front step with a ceramic dish covered in aluminum foil. Wearing her good wool coat, her expression arranged into something that was trying to be festive and landing closer to cautious. My father stood half a step behind her, his hands in his jacket pockets, his eyes doing that thing they do where he is hoping very hard that the next few minutes will go smoothly. "We brought the green bean casserole," my mother said, holding out the dish. "We would have been here sooner, but your father had some trouble finding parking." I looked at them for a moment. I had imagined this moment, or something like it, many times in the past few weeks. I had imagined swinging the door open wide and feeling the warmth of their arrival wash over the awkwardness of their lateness. I had imagined my mother walking through every room, touching things, asking questions. I had imagined my father standing in the kitchen with a paper plate looking quietly proud in the way he sometimes was when he didn't quite know how to say it out loud. I stepped back and let them in. The gathering was winding down by then. Claudia and one of my colleagues were still at the kitchen table. Patrick was putting on his jacket. My mother moved through the living room with her eyes doing a quick inventory, the paint colors, the furniture arrangement, the bookshelves I'd built from a kit and then sanded and stained myself. She nodded at things in a way that was not quite approval and not quite its opposite. "It's smaller than I pictured," she said. "It's 1,100 square feet," I said. "It's what I could afford." "Of course," she said, quickly. "It's lovely, very cozy." My father shook Patrick's hand and asked him something about the neighborhood. Patrick answered warmly, because Patrick is warm with everyone, and I watched my father relax slightly. My mother found her way to the kitchen and set the green bean casserole on the counter next to the remnants of the food. She looked at what was left. Then she looked at me. "I'm sorry we missed most of it," she said, in a voice that was sorry the way weather is sorry. Present, impersonal, not quite accountable for itself. "You know how Sundays can be." "You confirmed 6 weeks ago," I said. "Diana." Her voice had a warning in it, a familiar warning. The one that meant, not in front of people, not like this. Remember what you owe to keeping things smooth. "I'm not starting anything," I said. "I'm just noting that you confirmed, and you came almost 3 hours late, and Derek and Renee didn't come at all. I'm noting that Derek had an emergency with the business. His business is 4 weeks old. These things happen in the early stages, you know that. And Renee wasn't feeling well. Renee texted me that something came up." My mother set down the dish towel she had picked up without seeming to realize it. Her jaw did the thing it does when I have said something she will need a moment to reframe before responding to. "I don't understand why you always have to do this," she said quietly, so that it was technically between us even though Claudia was 8 feet away and definitely not leaving now. "We came. We're here. We brought food. Can't you just be grateful for that?" And there it was. The sentence I have been hearing since I was old enough to want things and be disappointed by them. Can't you just be grateful? Grateful for the partial. Grateful for the late. Grateful for the afterthought delivered with a casserole dish as cover. Grateful in a way that asked me to weigh what I received against nothing, rather than against what was promised, what was deserved, what I had watched flow freely and completely toward Derek every time he needed it. I had apologized for this moment so many times in my imagination. I had run through the version of myself who says, "You're right, I'm sorry. Let's just enjoy what's left of the afternoon." I knew that version well. She was comfortable and practiced, and she left my mother feeling fine and me feeling like something was quietly being taken from me that I would never get back. I didn't apologize. "I am grateful," I said. "I'm grateful every day for the life I've built. I'm grateful I bought this house. I'm grateful for every person who showed up today on time because they wanted to be here." I paused. What I'm not going to do is pretend it doesn't matter that my family chose to spend today somewhere else. My mother's face cycled through several expressions. "We did not choose. Where was Derek today?" She hesitated, one beat too long. "He had a meeting. For the business. On a Sunday. Business doesn't keep office hours, Diana." "Does it keep housewarming hours?" I asked. Because his sister, the one who paid her own way through nursing school and worked double shifts for 5 years and bought a house by herself, his sister had a housewarming today, and Derek had a meeting. My father had drifted back into the doorway between the kitchen and the living room. He was looking at the floor. "Your brother works very hard," my mother said. I heard the words. I let them land. I felt them in the place in my chest where I have been storing this feeling for a long time, adding to it carefully, year by year. "I know you believe that," I said. "I also know that you are standing in a house I bought alone, holding a casserole you almost didn't bring, and you have not once today said that you're proud of me." The kitchen was very quiet. Claudia was looking at her coffee cup. Patrick was still in the living room, and I could tell by the stillness that he was listening. My mother opened her mouth, closed it. My father said, from the doorway, in a voice I hadn't heard from him in a long time, low and careful and something like ashamed, "We are proud of you, Diana. I should have said it when I walked in." "I'm sorry I didn't." My mother looked at him. Something shifted in her face. Not much, but enough to notice. "I'm proud of you too," she said, finally. It came out stiffly, like a word in a language she hadn't practiced recently. But it came out. I nodded. "Thank you," I said. "That's all I needed." We got through the rest of the afternoon. It wasn't warm exactly, but it was functional, the specific functionality of a family that has too much history to be comfortable and too much attachment to walk away entirely. My mother ate the cornbread and admitted it was good. My father helped Patrick carry the extra chairs to the garage, and they ended up talking for 20 minutes about college football. I watched them from the kitchen window and felt something complicated move through me. After my parents left, Claudia stayed to help me wrap up the food. "That was hard," she said, not as a question. "Yeah," I said. "You did great." I thought about that while I ran warm water over the dishes. Did I do great? I had not kept the peace. I had said the thing I always swallow down. I had watched my mother's face go through all its complicated weather and not flinched. I had heard my father say he was proud of me, possibly for the first time without it being attached to a performance review or a graduation stage. I didn't know if I had done great. I knew I had done something true. That evening, after Claudia left and the house was mine again, I walked through every room, not to check on anything, just to be in it. The cornbread smell was still in the kitchen. The forget-me-not vase was on the coffee table with the flowers slightly drooping in the nice way flowers droop at the end of a good day. The rosemary plant on the front step caught the last of the evening light when I opened the door and looked out at the quiet street. I had worked 5.5 years for this. I had done it without a safety net, without a loan from someone who believed in my entrepreneurial spirit, without a family that arranged its Sundays around my milestones. I had done it with a spreadsheet and a cracked dashboard and an alarm set for 5:15 and the absolute unglamorous belief that the life I was building was worth building even if no one was watching. My family hadn't been there at 2 o'clock. That was true. But the house was still mine. Claudia had been there. My colleagues had been there. Patrick had brought lemon bars and stayed longer than anyone and told me on his way out that this block had been waiting for someone who would put a rosemary plant on a front step. I didn't fully understand what he meant, but it felt like exactly the right thing to say. In the weeks after the housewarming, something shifted. Not dramatically. Not the way things shift in movies, where a conversation cracks everything open and the light comes flooding through. More the way a room changes when you rearrange the furniture the same space, but your body moves through it differently, and after a while you can't quite remember why you had it the other way. I stopped adjusting myself before I called home. That small tightening I used to do, the internal bracing for whatever version of the conversation would remind me of my place in the family ecosystem. I noticed it one Sunday morning and then I just didn't do it. I called. I talked to my mother about her garden and my father about the football game he'd watched. The conversation was shorter than usual. It was also easier than usual. Derek called me 3 weeks later. He needed to talk through some numbers. The business was in a transitional phase. He didn't ask how the housewarming had gone. He asked if I had any thoughts on whether our parents might be open to a second round of funding. I said, clearly and without heat, that I didn't have any advice to offer on that subject. He paused. Then he said, "You've gotten weird, Di." "I've gotten clear," I said. "There's a difference." I planted a small herb garden in the backyard in November, which everyone told me was too late in the season, and which I did anyway because I wanted to, and because half of it survived the first frost, which felt like exactly the right amount of a miracle, not enough to be smug about, just enough to feel like an answer to something. My father texted me a photo of an article about first-time homeowners in the new year. No message, just the article. I stared at it for a while before I understood that it was him, in the language available to him, saying that he was paying attention. I sent back a photo of the herb garden. He replied with a thumbs up and then, after a minute, a house emoji. Small things. Quiet things. The kind of things that don't make a story if you're looking for a dramatic resolution, but that matter enormously if you understand that most of real life is not dramatic resolution. It is people slowly, imperfectly, in whatever way they are capable of, finding their way towards something better. I am not waiting for my family to become different people. I spent 31 years waiting for that, and what I learned is that waiting is a thing I can choose to stop doing. I can love them as they are limited, complicated, occasionally capable of surprising me, and I can live my life in the house with my name on the deed without requiring their presence in every room of it. That is not a sad conclusion. I want to be clear about that. I walk through this house every day. I make coffee in the kitchen. I repainted twice before I got the color right. I sit on the porch on weekend mornings with a mug and a book, and the rosemary plant catching whatever light the morning offers. I have Claudia over on Thursdays sometimes. Patrick and I have a standing arrangement to wave at each other across the yard, which sounds small but after years of apartment living feels like extraordinary wealth. I built this life. I built it with discipline and stubbornness and an unwillingness to believe that being overlooked at home meant I was worth overlooking. The house is 1,100 square feet. It is mine. And some days, when the light comes through the kitchen window at the right angle and the herbs in the backyard are doing something improbable for the season, I look around at what I made and I think, I should have done this sooner. Not bought the house, I couldn't have bought it sooner. The math was the math. But this feeling, this refusal to make myself small enough to fit into the space my family had assigned me. This decision to let what was true be true without apologizing for it. I should have stood in my own kitchen a long time ago and let myself take up exactly as much room as I'd earned. I'm doing it now. That's enough.